Welcome to the PP. The title or the thumbnail you clicked on is not clickbait. I built an entire shed and or studio, whatever you want to call it, out of pallets. Like the walls, the floors, part of the roof, completely. And this video has been a long time coming. I don't fully have all the footage, but I do have a ton of stuff to show you. And I'm going to do it in kind of more of a story format instead of like a here's exactly how to do this thing or exactly how I did it. So with that being said, let's begin. So the best way for me to try to get this across the screen to you guys on how I did this, because it's absurd. I built a 16 by 16 shed out of pallets. Who does that? Not many people. When doing this, it was a huge undertaking. Did not realize how big of an undertaking it was going to be because your boy was balling on a budget. And then, I began building on a budget because, one, I did not have the time or the finances to be actually able to get this thing done. And originally, I just needed a place to store stuff. And my dad said, you can't build it bigger. So when you build it, you might as well build it big. So you can see here in the pictures, I needed a place to build it. This is my backyard. You can kind of see where it's all marked off. I decided 20 by 15. No, we ended up 16 by 16. From there, I knew that if you're going to do anything, you need a plan. And like I've said in so many episodes, okay, the 4 steps to a plan: make a plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan. Every single plan you do will go that way. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. I drew out how I wanted the cinder blocks, and essentially the way the pallets, the floor would be for 4 cinder blocks, there'd be 1 pallet. And then it would be kind of like on the corner of that cinder block. Then there would be another pallet, and then another pallet, and another pallet. So essentially, the ground is level, the cinder blocks are level, and the entire shed is sitting on top of the cinder blocks, which is a normal thing for most buildings, or I guess most sheds. But yeah, that's the plan. With that being said, I now needed to source pallets. I found a local store that was selling pallets for $3 a pallet. On top of that, I probably got about half of my pallets for free, because when people are figuring out you're doing this huge thing and you're building an entire shed out of pallets, they'll be like, hey man, I got a ton of pallets that need to go. You're more than free to take them. Some people, I found out some people actually have businesses where they go drive around town and pick up pallets. I don't fully know what they do with them, but there is a way that they actually make money on that. I don't understand. I don't know. But long story short, when people are finding out you're doing something for free, they'll try to give you stuff. And it's usually like another man's trash is another man's treasure kind of thing. But in this case, it genuinely was. So with that being said, I don't even remember the number of pallets I had. But what I do remember is I didn't have enough. So that's why I had to go buy some more. Now, building a pallet shed, I had no idea what I was doing, but I had kind of an idea and I came up with a plan, and I sourced ideas from multiple places. One being my own father's shed. Whenever he had his built by other people, the normal way, with 2x4s and whatnot, they build sheds for people all the time, and they save money on a soffit and fascia by just not including it. So I drew inspiration from that and decided to do it the exact same way. On top of that, I went ahead and 3D modeled my own shed that I had in my head out of the 2x4s, just to kind of get an idea of some of the other pieces of material that I might need, and build a bill of materials for my shed process. Funny thing happened. None of what I planned for actually happened that way. Literally threw the entire thing out the window. The next images you're going to see right now are actually going to be just from a business closing down, and just being gutted and just throwing away a bunch of materials. So we basically just took a trailer, got a bunch of pieces of plywood, pallets, all kinds of stuff. Whatever I could take that made sense for me actually trying to build this thing. So now with me having all these materials, the project's got to get started at some point. And as we've said so many times, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Having said that, same thing for the shed. It's got to happen eventually. So let's just get it started. I went out and just made sure the ground was level. We put all of our our blocks down, we start putting all the pallets down, and now we have to tie all of them in together. So as it's all down, some of the pallets might be a little bit thicker, some taller, so you're having to change the level of some things. But essentially, once you start putting that plywood down and you start adding weight to it and you screw the plywood into all those pallets, it's going to start interlocking every single one of those pallets. And as I am putting it down, I'm also screwing pallets into each other, so like the floor is real solid and there's quite a lot of weight to it. Fun fact, pallets can hold a lot of weight. That's like the first thing you would think of when you're going to build a pallet shed, is that's a lot of weight. Can that actually hold it up? Absolutely. I guess technically I'm an engineer now, but I'm not a structural engineer. If a structural engineer is seeing this somewhere, please put in the chat how much a pallet can actually hold. I'll actually put something up on screen because I genuinely don't know. I just remember being impressed with how much it can hold. Now, like I said, this shed is a 16 by 16 shed made out of pallets, including the walls. So now that we got the floor on, all the pallets are interlocked, it is super solid. We now need to get the walls put up. My idea for the walls is like, okay, I have this pallet at this certain size, and now all I have to do is put another pallet on side of that. Like I'm building Legos. It's gonna be super easy. I'm gonna put a pallet down, stack a pallet on top of that, and boom, I got a wall. No, it was not going to be that easy. So, okay, now that I'm actually doing it, okay, the pallet's made of a 2x4. I'm going to slide a 2x4 inside the top pallet and the bottom pallet, and now I have tension, and I'm just going to screw it in, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of the wall. This was also a terrible idea. So bad, in fact, that 2 or 3 days go by, and I am like spending so much time with a sledgehammer just trying to wedge this 2x4 into the middle of pallets, which is, it's just, yeah, it's late at night, and ding, ding, ding. I'm sure my neighbors left me, okay? But my dad was just like, son, I can't let this happen. So he came over, and in the picture you can actually see there is no bottom plate at all. For those of you who don't know what a bottom plate is, essentially there's a bottom in your house. There in the walls, there's a bottom plate and there's a top plate inside of the wall. That bottom plate essentially frames out where all the walls are going to be and where all the openings for doors and stuff like that are going to be. And then the entire wall sits on top of that bottom plate. The top plate is what encases the top of the wall in before the roof actually goes on, and it gives it all structure, and then you level that top plate, and the entire thing is level. It's just, that's how you're supposed to build buildings. I had no idea. So with that being said, my dad comes and he's like, son, I can't let this happen. This isn't it. So he also sees how I'm building the wall, and like I said, there is no blueprint for building a pallet shed. This is all something I'm just figuring out as I go. What we actually ended up doing for the wall was we kept the same method of stacking a pallet on top of each other. The only difference is we did not take, well, outside of the top plate, bottom plate, we did not take the 2x4 and stick it in the middle of the pallets. We stuck it on the outside of the pallets. So we would stack 2 pallets, we'd stick that 2x4 on the outside, we'd shoot it in, we'd go back and screw it in, and then we would take 2 more pallets and stick it on the other side of the 2x4, and then repeat the process throughout the entire thing. Now, as we're doing it, the top plate needs to be level, and we're just basically have this 2x4 just overhanging real far. So all we would do is, pallet, shoot it in, make sure it's level, pallet, shoot it into the next 2x4, and essentially my walls now are technically stronger than a regular wall. So I want you to imagine it like this. You have a pallet, right, which is built of a 2x4. Then you have an actual 2x4 next to it, and then you have another pallet, which is a 2x4 on top of that. So you essentially have 3 2x4s building up one portion of the wall. Now, the thing is in between the pallets, yes, there is another 2x4, but I essentially made like a makeshift, part of the wall where I would essentially just grab a board and or something free that I got and stick it to it, shoot it in, and now I'm making another makeshift support or structure to the wall, if you will. But it's also encased the front and back with pallet boards. So I believe I actually have more structural stability or more wood in these walls than my actual home. So if you're a structural engineer, please let me know if I'm right or wrong about that. But man, I genuinely feel like these walls are stronger than my house, like genuinely. One of the major differences, and I'm sure I mentioned it already, was how we did the soffit and fascia. We just didn't do it. We took a board and stacked it on top of the top plate, and then the rafters that would go up to the roof, we just essentially cut them to be flush with it. So the wall would go up straight and then just straight over into the roof, now saving me a whole lot of money on materials, on not having any kind of overhang or soffit or anything like that. And then just like literally getting the roof done was a huge undertaking. I would literally be out here late at night with my camera lights and just an extension cord up on a ladder, just cutting wood and just fitting this thing in. Having said that, at this point it needed to be cased in because I didn't want to get all of the wood wet. I mean, it's a lot of wood that's sitting here, 16 by 16, that I just spent a lot of money on. I spent a lot of time on. I do not want to soak the entire thing and then just ruin the entire project. So now that I have the roof kind of like in, I also coming out here late at night and breaking apart pallet boards. So essentially these pallet boards are all the same size. And once I have the rafters in, I don't remember what it's called, but it's another part of like support for the roof, where essentially I have all of my rafters in, and now I'm going to have these ribs that run across the roof the other way to give it more strength. This is also something that I can screw in the sheet metal that I plan on putting up for the roof, and it gives it more structural support. Again, I'm not a structural engineer, nor am I a framer or a roofer, but I did a lot of research at the time and just figured out the best way to get it done, build it on a budget, if you will. Now, with that being said, one of the things that I need to do, right, like I'm trying to save money, I need to get this thing built, but I need to make it waterproof. And on normal houses, you would Tyvek wrap the entire thing, but for this, what I ultimately end up going with, just because it was cheaper, was roof felt. So this is the underlayment you would put on, like under shingles on regular roofs, right on top of the wood. So I bought a big old roll of it and essentially just tacked the entire thing to the side. And it's pretty easy to tack because, I mean, the entire thing is pallets. So literally you can feel where the pallet's at. You just hit a tack in and boom, now the entire side is covered. From there, we got the roof on with the sheet metal. And at this point, last thing we need to actually get this thing to be waterproof is going to be doors. For the time being, I had just covered them up with just sheets of plywood and then also the roof tarp that I had covering it and just the drop cloth from the painter stuff. So essentially the way I built these doors was on the front side of it, I took a piece of plywood, painted it, made it weatherproof. And then on the outside, I put a bunch of the thin pieces of the pallet wood. And then I sandwiched another piece of plywood, essentially insulating those doors. And that's pretty much how the doors are built. They're pretty solid. And it also didn't cost me a whole lot. Basically just, a little bit of paint and then just the free materials I already had on hand. Now, is it the best? No, but this whole thing is built out of pallets. Like literally what you're watching right now, this entire episode, I am sitting in a shed and/or studio, whatever you want to call this thing. We'll just call it the shed because that's what I go to. Made out of pallets. Like this. This is made out of pallets. So from there, we needed to get the walls. We needed to get the exterior of the building completed. At this point, I wanted to do like vinyl siding or something kind of nice. But ultimately, like I said, building on a budget, we ended up using pretty much the same material that we used for the roof on the walls. It came in these like 10 by, I can't remember how wide it was, sheets of metal. So essentially all I had to do was just go around the entire thing. And again, it's made out of pallets. All I had to do was literally just screw it right in. 9 times out of 10, you hit wood. The only time I actually had some problems and where it was a little bit challenging and maybe I had to add a few extra pieces and stuff like that was the front and the back, essentially where the top plate is on the building. I use 2x4s to go up to the roof to give it support and structure to it, and also give me something to screw into, because at that point it's just like a regular building and it's all hollow. Or I guess you would put plywood on the exterior of the building, but that's besides the point. There was no pallets up there. I didn't have anything to screw into other than those 2x4s. Got a little tricky there, but outside of that, I mean, it worked. Having said all that, the roof, the walls, the wrapping of it, the floor, all of that, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you where I worked at the time and what I did to actually get this thing done. Because this whole like studio shed was not built in a week. It was more like 2 years. I basically just had the idea and I had the vision for it. So I just went for it. Didn't know how I was going to do it and how I was going to afford it, but I was just going to make it happen. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to say I essentially got hired on as a data imaging technician for a film that was coming to New Orleans. So for the next 2 weeks, they basically just needed to hire on a few extra people just to kind of get the final finishing touches of this film done for tax credit purposes. If you guys want to look up the film that I helped on, it's actually called Bosco. It's based off a true story about a person actually escaping from prison. That's all I'll say about that. You guys should just go check it out. But I was a data imaging technician, a DIT, and for 2 weeks, overnight, I worked. So I would do my day job, right? My little 9 to 5 or whatever time it was that I got in and left. I would come home, change, take a shower, and then immediately head about an hour out, hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on wherever the film location was. And one of these nights, I'm actually literally early in the morning. I was overnight in a prison filming, making extra money as a data imaging technician. One really funny story though is this went on for 2 weeks and I was like absolutely exhausted. Like, when did I sleep, right? That's the question. I basically slept on my lunch break. That 30 minutes I would go back to my truck, just pass out for 30 minutes. And then even on set, whenever I wasn't doing anything with footage or helping with camera crew or anything like that, I would just take like little 10, 20, 30 minute just power naps throughout the day. On top of that, a lot of caffeine. Like, I mean, a lot of caffeine. And the funny thing about it is I'll never forget the director and the assistant director. They were getting pissed off because we had this, there's a crafty and there's all kinds of like food and drinks. And they were like, "Where the hell is my caffeine? I literally had..." They're like, "Where the hell is my double shot espressos?" I mean, they were getting pissed off, right? Because I don't know. They were just really pissed off about these double shot espressos because they would just ask for them. And somebody would go run out and go get like 2 cases of them, and they just like stuff the cooler or whatever it was. And me, on the other hand, I know exactly what happened to all those double shot espressos. As they're like yelling and getting aggravated, I'm like stuffing 4 Starbucks double shot espressos into my bag because I know if I don't have this, I'm going to die. Like for the whole 2 weeks, my little cooler I kept at my place of work, it was just stocked with nothing but like just Starbucks double shot espressos, and that's what I lived off of. But yeah, no, it was really funny for him to just get so mad about that and so confused as to where they were all going. If you're watching this now, it was me. So at this point, we have the roof up, we have the exterior of the shed done, and we have the doors done. And that's at the time, that's pretty much like all I need. I was given these floor mats for free because somebody else I knew was getting, like, they had a home gym and they were getting new stuff. So they just gave me their hand-me-down stuff, and this was perfect. Like, man, I got a place to store stuff. I have a gym to work out in. That's pretty much all I needed and wanted. The only other thing that I'm now going to do is electrical. So I literally dug a 60-foot trench, buried the electrical piping in the ground, drilled the hole in the bottom plate where the pipe was going to come up to into the box and installed the box. And at that point, guys, I really want to say, do what you can, right, to save money, but do not skimp out on what like really important things like electricity and or the HVAC or just like the trade stuff. There's just certain stuff you absolutely should not try to be saving money on. You want to pay for things. You want to pay for some expertise. So once I got the trench dug and the pipe in and everything else, I had somebody go connect power from the house to the shed because I don't know how to do that. I'm sure I can. Honestly, I'm pretty positive I know how to do it, but I did not want to. I wanted a licensed professional in case something goes wrong or something happens. That's what I recommend. Hire a professional to get it done. On a personal level, I will tell you some things you got to make happen. But with that, go hire a professional. Whether it's insurance wise or legally or whatever it is, hire a professional. And from there, we're going to bring it back to another side job I got, right? Because like all this stuff is expensive. The sheetrock's expensive. And I know I said this before, but man, the insulation on the inside of the walls is expensive. And as I'm building this thing out, I'm realizing like, okay, the gym thing really isn't going to happen too much, honestly. And I want this to be more than what it is. I don't really remember at this time what exactly was going through my mind, other than just like get the job done. But I do remember at one point I found out I was going to have my second child and I was being kicked out of the house and I was losing my office and I needed a new place to work. So where's the best, most convenient location? Right in the backyard at the shed/studio that I had just built. And right now, yeah, it's just a shed at this point. So, okay, I get a side job, and this side job is actually a demo job for a brand new gym that's coming in. And they decided to hire me as, I guess, cheap labor, if you will, but it didn't matter to me. I had a price to get the entire job done, and man, I made it happen in 2 weeks. So same as the film set, except it wasn't working overnight. It was just once I got off work, I went to the gym and got all this construction stuff done, probably about to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight. But if you're looking at the pictures now, man, it was a lot of work. Essentially, I was taking down all of the ductwork, all of the half walls, and then I was cutting out all of the roof insulation because they were going to come back and spray foam it. Now, like I said before, I don't know what I'm doing, but I am good at sourcing materials and just making things happen. So all of the insulation I cut down, I would make sure that I cut it down as best as I could. I would roll it up, stick it in these black plastic trash bags, and then throw them in the back of my car. Because, man, you know what pallets are really good for? Stuffing insulation in between them in the walls. So, I mean, it was perfect. So basically, all of the insulation in this shed I got from one of the construction jobs I did. So yeah, I made money from it. And then two, it paid for literally all of the insulation in the shed for free. I mean, there's a ton of insulation we still threw out, but like most of it, I was able to bag up, bring it here, stuff in between the walls. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So funny story, I actually got pulled over with all the black plastic trash bags in the back of my car. And believe it or not, the cops ended up letting me go. I mean, and we could talk about this maybe another time, but this was absolutely a crazy situation. I had like only one headlight working. I had all these black plastic trash bags in the back trunk, in the seat. I mean, like it was packed. I also had a respirator on the seat next to me, and then I had a whole thing of tools. And I was also like, I was just dirty, long sleeves because I'm dealing with insulation. It was like a full-on Dexter-esque situation. And man, I don't care if you want to call it white privilege or whatnot, but thank God those guys let me go because it was crazy. Like they checked my license and whatnot. But we can talk about this another time. But man, whew, thank the Lord. It was like 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Like I'm just not building a good story for myself at this point. But man, they let me go. Thank God. But whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, with that being said, we got the insulation in, and you can kind of see if you're watching this, if you're just listening to this. Yeah, I mean the insulation, I just had to cut it, and it just bloop right into the walls. From there, we needed the roof done, right? So we have the exterior of the roof done, but we needed to insulate it because a lot of heat is going to be generated from that metal. And if we want to cool this place off, we need to insulate the roof. So instead of just throwing the insulation up there, I was gonna sheetrock it, but I ended up finding this 1-inch thick styrofoam board that literally looks just like sheetrock. So essentially, I put up this 1-inch thick styrofoam board, slide all of my insulation in, and now I have an extra layer of insulation on the roof where it's actually going to be the hottest. So at this point, it's basically like an ice box in here. We have 1-inch thick insulation on, 1-inch thick styrofoam on the roof with insulation behind that. And then in every single part of the wall and the pallets, we have more insulation. From there, another really cool thing about doing it with pallets and like having the insulation that way, the pallet boards on the inside of the wall kind of create a bunch of channels, essentially for your electrical. So when you're going from your box to each of these outlets, so you can kind of just staple around the wire, and as long as you know the exact height of where you're running all of your electrical, you're pretty much good to go. So once you go back with sheetrock, you just know, don't screw anything at that height and you're good. Outside of that, I mean, there's like certain portions of it where, you know, you had to drill through the center of some of the studs to be able to get the electrical through, but man, like, it was super convenient. I just figured I'd show this as well. This wasn't one of the only side jobs, or those two weren't, like the film set and then the demo for the gym wasn't the only side jobs I did. I also literally would finish my like desk job, and then I went and worked on roofs like all day, or like it would be a Saturday and a Sunday and I was just working on a roof in the hot sun in the middle of the summer. Man, and I just want to bring it back to that same point that if you really want something done, you have to will it into existence. You cannot just want something badly. You have to will it. You have to make it happen, because the cavalry ain't coming. They're not coming. You have to just do it. You have to just get it done. Regardless of whether you want to or not, it's going to be late nights, it's going to be weekends, it's going to be whatever it is, you just got to get it done. It doesn't matter if you're tired. All that matters is that you don't stop. It doesn't matter if you slow down. All that matters is that you don't stop. It doesn't matter if you feel like giving up or you take a day or a week off. You just have to keep going, and you just have to get it done. So that's all I'm getting at with all these extra jobs. I'll kind of leave it alone. That was actually the last one that I had done. For there, yeah, we're pretty much now sheetrocking and taping and floating. At this point, we ended up putting up like a half wall, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You can kind of see everything tape floated. It's got electrical running to it. At this point, all it needs is a couple layers of paint and just to move everything in. Now, looking at it, honestly, you couldn't even tell that it's a pallet shed, because it just, I mean, other than the parts that are sticking out that definitely, you know, they don't look like it's an actual house or anything. But for just being a shed, man, this thing looks awesome. I do want to note the AC in here is something I also have never done before. After looking up multiple ways of getting this done, I figured out a reefer system would actually be the best. I guess a refrigeration system, whatever you want to call it. But essentially all it is like one head on the wall, and then it runs out to a unit in the back, and that's pretty much it. Now, you can't legally buy Freon, but there is a brand called Mr. Cool DIY, where essentially the lines come preset and they give you instructions. There's a video and everything for you to be able to do your own AC. Now, you might have to hire somebody for the electrical, but you can actually get it done yourself. They sell it for that very reason. But yeah, that's another thing you do not want to skip on. It's probably one of the more expensive parts of this project, just because, you know, we needed to be able to heat this place off and cool it off. And it's actually rated, I believe, for 500 square feet. And I have 350 square feet of space with a ton of insulation. So, man, that thing just, it's doing great. It's been about 4 years or so, and it's still kicking. The only issues I've had has been a few leaks, but that's normal. It's going to be wear and tear on any system. But man, I'd recommend them. They're great. Outside of that, yeah, that's pretty much it for the shed build. This is a video that I've been wanting to record and talk about for a long time. Never got around to it because, you know, it was never there in my head. It would just never be how I wanted it to be, but thinking that way would never get it done, right? And we got an entire shed built out of pallets, so that's why we're recording now. This podcast was not a thing. It wasn't even a thought before the shed was ever a thing. Working out of it was never even a thought. So to get to this point now where I basically have a shed / studio / place of work and a podcast to be able to record all this out of, I am just, man, I'm truly grateful. The only thing I could say is that, man, it's really just all a gift from God. I mean, you could tell by the shirt that I'm wearing, kind of like how I believe, but it kind of bleeds through in just how I think about certain things, even willing something into existence, right? Like you'll have what you say, but yeah, I'm super grateful. And man, God will take you further than what you ever could even think or imagine. The entire shed was just an idea that popped into my head while I was out on a run. And I was like, wow, I don't know why. I can't even explain it. And I remember telling my wife at the time, I don't understand why, but I just got to get this thing built. It's just going to be like an extra storage place and place for me to work out, I guess. And man, look what it's become. Like, it's so exciting. Who knows what that small idea or thought you have could turn into? It could literally be an entire podcast or shed or studio. Fun fact about this, the moment I got AC and electrical and lights and everything in here up and running and it was working, like the moment I got it done, a month later, I got a brand new job where I could actually work from home. And like, it was never built for that, but it became a perfect use for that. And how cool was that? I get to tell my new place of work, like, hey, I built an entire place to work out of, made out of pallets, where I have my own office space, I'm left alone, and I can actually get the work done for you guys. So I don't know what else to say besides thank you to those who have actually helped me build this project. Again, this is like, you know, a few years later, but you know who you are if you've helped me. The number one person, honestly, thank you, Dad. Dad has actually helped me the most. And like anybody, obviously, the way you're raised, you're taught to think kind of certain ways. I guess it's the whole nature versus nurture thing. But outside of that, no, he literally, I mean, he's given me stuff for free, like the window and the electrical box for no good reason. When his dad's house was getting demolished, he decided to just literally go take windows and take his electrical box, and he's had it in storage for like freaking 15, 20 years. And he's like, hey, son, you're building a shed. Here you go. He saved his front door. That's where the door came from. His old front door is now the side door of my shed. There's so many things in this shed that he has helped me with, and also just like the framing of the wall and everything, and even some of the tools that I used. Outside of also purchasing tools. That was another extra expense I didn't plan on. But man, that's pretty much it. Thank you to those who have helped. Also, thank you guys for watching, especially if you got up to this point, or listening, wherever you're seeing this. I have no idea. But yeah, if you got up to this point, or even if you've watched a minute of any of the episodes, thank you. It's super appreciative. Man, at the end of this, I always think, who am I to be able to do any of this? I'm just super appreciative all the time. And yeah, I'm just, you know what? Now, like my wife says, land the plane. I'm just talking in circles, being long-winded. So, thanks. See you next time.